Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you every Sunday morning at 7 a.m., are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, it's 7:12 this Sunday morning, December 30th. December 30th, 2018, which means that we have about 48 more hours left in 2018, you all. So whatever you haven't done that you committed to doing in 2018, you need to be about your business, because this year is coming to a close, and it's coming to a close quickly. Well, I'm excited about this morning's show. We have a phenomenal show. Obviously, with the year coming to a close, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how to complete your year powerfully. And that is the topic this morning, how to complete your year powerfully. And to help me have that conversation, because one of the things that I know when it comes to completion is all about forgiveness. And in coaching, we refer to it as completion, right? Being fully complete so you can move forward. But that process is about self-forgiveness, it's about forgiving others, and really reflecting on what's gone well, what you've accomplished, what you don't feel so good about, acknowledging those things, allowing them to be, and forgiving yourself. And forgiving anyone else if you have something on them. And so to help me in that conversation, I brought in Yuri and John Cruzat, who are the founders of Learning Forgiveness. Yeah. And let me tell you, I'm excited to have them on the air this morning. I had the opportunity to listen to 7 Days of Forgiveness, which is your audiobook.
Yes.
And it walks you through the steps of forgiveness, and I would say in a very complete way. So if put it like this, we all need forgiveness.
Yes, we do.
And I think that often when you bring up the word forgiveness, we always think about it in terms of offense or someone who may have wronged us.
Right.
But I think we forget that forgiveness is a part of our everyday lives, our everyday process. So to the listeners, especially those of you who are believers, let me tell you something. You need to go download this book, and it's available on Audible.
Mm-hmm.
It's available on Audible.
It's available on Audible.
And it's fairly, it's very, very,
very affordable.
very affordable. How much is it on Audible?
I think it's like
it's
$3.89. It's under $4.
Yeah.
We wanted everybody to be sure and have access to it.
Okay, so about $4. And again, what I always tell people, you'll spend that on a cup of coffee. Easily, and then the cup of coffee is gone. I mean, there's nothing you can do with that. That caffeine's been used up. But this book will continue to give and give. Pam hasn't had an opportunity to hear it yet, but I'll definitely be sharing it with her as well, because I mean, it just really was a phenomenal book. I'm really excited to chat with you all this morning. Now, I'm gonna kind of follow a format here.
Okay.
Because whenever you're completing a year, the first thing is, what went well? Mm-hmm. Like, what did you achieve? And so I sent the email to a lot of people on my email list. If you're not on my email list, how you do that is you go to slayyourgoals.com, download the book. That'll put you on the email list. There are other ways, but that's the main way right now. But I sent them a free download in the spirit of Kwanzaa.
Right.
Speaking of which, Habar Ghani.
Yeah.
And today's principle is Nia.
Yeah.
Purpose.
My
favorite.
Right on time.
right.
Yeah.
But In the spirit of Kwanzaa, I've been giving the people on my list as many free gifts as possible.
Absolutely.
Right. And one of the things I gave them was how to complete your year powerfully PDF that had 5 questions. The very first question is, and let me be clear, let me be sure, I got a lot of stuff on my mind this morning, but I believe the very first question is, what did you achieve? Like, what did you achieve? And have you properly listed that accomplishment, right? So what did you accomplish this year? So I'll ask you guys also, I'll create my list. But when you think about 2018, what would you say is one of the accomplishments that's top of mind for you that you're really proud of?
Well, you mentioned it, the book. That was huge.
Okay.
You know, that when you talk about blood, sweat, and tears and taking something from thought to finish, it is really, that was a huge accomplishment for us.
Nice.
So that was a big one. And then we also had a wonderful opportunity to work with Mary Green for the Expo for Today's Black Woman. And that was just a great opportunity to
Yeah, and
impact the
additionally,
audience.
so many seminars, interviews of all kinds.
Right. I mean, I saw you guys on Fox 32. I mean, you flip on your TV, they're the Cruzats.
Right.
Talking
It's
forgiveness.
It's been
Yeah.
a wonderful
It's been a
year for
wonderful
us to
year.
project and amplify this forgiveness message.
Yeah, and it's a phenomenal message. I think a needed message because especially in our community, many of us we're moving around fragmented and fractured.
Absolutely.
From past hurt, past trauma. Dr. Joy DeGruy would say also the epigenetics of our ancestors as well, the lack of forgiveness that may have taken place. Generational, unforgiveness, right. So all these things are plaguing us. And I think sometimes we don't realize how important it is for us to address whatever hurt, whatever trauma we have in our lives with this process of forgiveness that you all share, which we're going to get to. The next question that I ask is, what did you learn? What did you learn this year? And I use this acronym, and it's FAIL, right? First attempt in learning. Is what I call it.
We
Right?
love
That's a
acronyms.
good
Yeah.
one.
Oh, I know. I listened to the book. You have a phenomenal one around STOP. I'm going to talk about that. Okay. STOP. But so, what did you learn this year? And what I talk about in this PDF that I sent out to everybody is that often our biggest learnings come from our failures, right? Our first attempt in learning. So, what would you guys say that you learned this year?
I think most of my learnings revolved around myself. When you're starting something new and you feel like you're moving out in purpose, you'll be amazed at how things open to move you forward and how many obstacles appear to create opportunities for you to exercise the faith that you're talking about, to exercise the practice that you're talking about.
So let's talk about that, Ro. You said obstacles.
Yeah.
So you're very clear on what it is you want to achieve. So I'm sure 2018 came in, you all sat down, you shared your goals. My wife and I, we've been talking about we got to do this, we We haven't done it yet for 2019. But we both have our separate goals, and what we do is we come together
And combine them.
and figure out how we're going to support each other, right?
Right.
So 2018 starts, and you set this goal, and then all of a sudden, there's resistance.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And what I tell the listeners all the time is that often when we encounter this type of resistance, we'll think to ourselves, well, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. But I can already tell the two of you, when you set out for 2018, let's just take the book. Because I know, as great as it sounded, right?
Thank you.
And by the way, I mean, it's phenomenal. It was really, really well done. I was teasing John before the segment started this morning. I was like, he's got this meditation voice.
Yes.
Okay. He's got this meditation voice, and it's just, I mean, he's just like, take a deep breath.
My Barry White.
Breathe 3 times, right? I was like, man, it was good. It was really good, right? But it gets you present. So,
Yeah.
and then, of course, Yuri comes in, and she's,
I'm his helmet, you know.
oh, it's phenomenal. You guys are making perfect, great team, perfect
Thank
team.
you. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. But I'm sure that you set this goal, for the book. And it's not like you just kind of skipped right into it.
No.
Everything.
No.
Yeah, right.
At all. We
Yeah.
did not at all. In fact, we want to give a shout out to Red Dove Media and Deshaun Ragland.
Sean Ragland.
It was only because of his kindness that, we were able to pull this off and allowed us the studio time. But, just trying to make it work, balancing, putting this together, the content, making sure that it actually is inspired, that you're actually not putting your ego above what is really necessary to be said, and
Which is huge.
Which is huge.
It's huge, yeah.
And actually just dealing with day-to-day obstacles that you run into that could prevent you from being able to do studio time, or between our 7 children, who needs what, and you've got to just sort of redirect your
Wait,
time.
so y'all put an audio book out with 7 children?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Because people they blame their children for all the things. Talking about forgiveness, right?
Oh,
we
my
were
gosh.
so fortunate not
Yeah.
only to practice what we preach, but to also see how much our children love us, because they were so supportive and encouraged us every step of the
Absolutely.
way.
Oh, that's wonderful.
They really
That's
did.
wonderful. So, plenty of obstacles that didn't stop you,
No.
and I wanted to say that, but what would you say you all learned most? And by the way, I also noticed support as well.
Sure.
You had support.
Most definitely. Our family and friends have just really shown up for us in a tremendous way. Our church community, the Emmaus community, Reverend Dr. Elise Barrymore, and our leadership team have just really supported us. The obstacles, though, I will tell you, there was something that Joyce Meyer, evangelist out in, who said something that just really has stuck with me. New level, new devils.
Oh man,
So
man.
when you're trying to take yourself to the next level,
big time.
don't look to see, the obstacles may not necessarily be, these are not by coincidence that this is happening. This is an opportunity to really stretch you, to prune you, to get you ready for the next level of operation.
That's
Something
right.
that's worth something is not going to come easy.
Yes.
And so half the time people sometimes don't even cross the finish line because of the difficulty and challenges, and they were just there.
Right. I call it 3 feet from goal.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
3 feet from
And
goal.
that's why I love your book, because that
Yeah.
whole idea of purpose puts obstacles into perspective.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like you said, people interpret an obstacle as an opportunity to stop or a sign of some
Yep.
sort. But when you understand your purpose, obstacles are what they actually are, opportunities for you to persevere through a situation. How bad do you want it?
That's right.
Because you know where you're supposed to be going.
That's right. And I believe they refine you.
Absolutely.
They refine you for that next level.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking about some of the accomplishments I had last year. My first Murder Mediocrity Summit.
That's right.
My first opportunity to take people out of the country as a tour leader for transformational travel.
Exciting.
And I ran into a number of obstacles, and there's also some, afterwards, the things that you have to deal with that prepare you for the next round.
That's right.
And some learnings so it makes me the leader that I intend to be, and it doesn't feel good,
Not always.
right?
No.
Especially because we're all flawed in our own ways and
That's
our
right.
humanity, and we bring our things. So you're like, okay, I'm learning. And that's the whole idea. And part of what I was taking everyone through on my mail list are, so what did you learn? Because I think that's really important in the reflection process.
It is. It's not about perfection. It's really about progression.
Oh, I love that.
And so if we can just get past the idea that, and really embrace that mistakes are going to happen and that we all are flawed, then we really understand that all things are really working together for our good.
Yeah.
I mean, like in a real way,
Right.
So,
So the next question is, where did you get stuck? Because you guys are laughing, but we all get stuck somewhere. I mean, as human beings, certain things happen, and we find ourselves stuck. Or, there may be a project or something that you said. For instance, I'll give you a perfect example. One of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to start on my second book.
Yeah.
Right? I got stuck.
That's so funny.
I got stuck. And I felt really bad about it, because I'm not one, when I set a goal, I'm not one to not accomplish the goal. And when I was looking at the fact that there was so much resistance around this book, I got to a point where I'm like, man, you can't say you're going to do something and not do it. Last week I talked about personal integrity and how the beauty of personal integrity is that it's my integrity. Like nobody else can come in and say, Linal, you don't have personal integrity, because they don't understand my intentions. They don't know my spirit, my mind.
That's right.
And what I knew is I intended to write a book. So I like in terms of things I think about this year where there was a lack of personal integrity was you said you were going to write a book. And I had to get, I had to forgive myself.
Yes.
I had to actually say it's okay, and then go back to the list number one and say, look at the things you did do.
That's right. Because we get caught up in condemnation.
Yeah.
We really do.
And condemnation will steal your power.
And stifle you.
Yes.
And stop.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to dive into you all's book. I'm just going through this. I got 2 more questions. I want to run, and we're gonna really get in. But the next question is, so where did you get stuck? Let me ask you all real quick. Was there somewhere where you all got stuck this year?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there were a few things that we wanted to be able to do around our yoga practice that we wanted it to kind of expand a little bit more. We had to rethink how we market. Oftentimes yoga is very unfamiliar within Christian communities or in faith-based communities, and they don't understand
And
it.
in the African
African community. And so
I've heard some things about yoga in the Christian community in particular. Yeah,
and
you're
like nobody has cornered the market
Who
on
told you
movement.
that?
I know,
Right?
just really crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So we realized that we probably needed to do more education around this. We found that some folks are intimidated depending on what their own health journey has been. But I tell you, this forgiveness conversation, it's the full integration of spirit, soul, and body. Guess what? Forgive yourself for what you haven't done or didn't do to your body. And so we kind of got stuck there in terms of our ability to expand. But I will tell you, what happens is that you get caught in your head. And you start overthinking things, and you can really be, make yourself, the self-condemnation, depression, focusing on the negative things and what didn't go well. And before you know it, months have gone by and you're still standing still.
Yep. In that particular area, no doubt.
Particular area. Yeah. So, it's being authentic around when you're dealing with disappointment, giving yourself the moment to kind of, deal with it. But we stay in our feelings, you don't get better.
And that's why you need to know exactly what forgiveness is and how to do it.
Yes.
Because it's a practice.
Yes. And one of the things I said in this PDF is, make a list. Create a list of where you got stuck, because I think it's important for us to know what we should be forgiving ourselves for, so we can move forward powerfully.
At the root level.
At the root level. Yeah. And tell us what you mean by that when you say at the root level.
Sometimes we're dealing with our symptoms and not the cause.
Yes.
We're dealing with what the exterior sort of byproduct is of an action or a deed, when instead of really examining the intention of that.
And I love that, because when I thought about the book, one of the things I'll be sharing in the book is some very personal. So this book is about how purpose transformed my life. Okay? And it's really, centered around purpose in particular. But in order to adequately tell the story, I have to tell some things that, some hurt that happened in the past. And I hadn't addressed that with other people. And so when I really got clear on why I got stuck, it's because I had procrastinated on having some of these conversations.
Sure.
So because once I had the conversation, all of a sudden I was free to write in that area, to explore that area. But before the conversation, I was just stuck. And so I like that in terms of, because I could say, well, time is the reason I didn't write the book. But when I get to the root of it, it really was a deep conversation I hadn't had about that past hurt, about that past situation that needed to take place.
And those things must happen. And see, our proclivity as humans is toward comfort. We're not going to typically run toward anything that makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah,
so procrastination is easy when the issue you have to face makes you uncomfortable.
That's true. That's true. So, and then the fourth question is, what's unfinished? So what would you say is unfinished when you look at your goals for the year, and maybe there's one that sticks out that you didn't complete? And I kind of shared a little bit about one of mine, and what I talk about is you don't want to take that negative energy about that goal into a brand new year.
That's right.
Right? And of course, we're going to talk a lot more about energy and why forgiveness and self-forgiveness and forgiving others as we move into the new year is important. But for those of you listening, it is really important to acknowledge what's unfinished. Like, acknowledge it. And I love what you said, John, about we don't like to feel uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable to actually admit that, hey, there's some things I said I was going to do that I did not finish.
Right.
Yeah.
Any perception of failure makes us feel bad about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And that's
So-
just not real.
So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to share a few things about 3 things you should consider when you're thinking about finishing anything. And then I have one more question, and then after that, we're going to really dive into the 7 days of forgiveness, the Just Breathe yoga practice, and more about what you all are bringing to the rest of us, which is phenomenal. So keep listening. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, right here on WBON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago.
I can't believe it's almost the end of the year and I still
This is
haven't
your
hit my
business, man.
goals. I'm tired of
Why do you say that?
I'm not reaching.
You should
It
be.
flows
Say that
Oh.
really
Very
well.
well, very well.
And
Remember
you're
when I told
very
you about the
easy to listen
definition
to,
of
and it
insanity?
sounds like you
Doing
can
the same
articulate your
thing and
thoughts
expecting different
Yeah.
results.
in a
Why
way
don't
that
you
just
join
causes the
Slay Your Goals
conversation to.
membership
That's why it's 2 hours.
Slay Your
It's
Goals
already
membership.
Oh,
out.
yeah, we're 30
What's
minutes in.
that?
Yeah.
Slay
Can
Your
you get
Goals
your
is a
phone and hit
monthly
your
membership
input reset up?
program that teaches you
I
the
don't
science of
understand
goal
that.
setting and gives you access to a community of others like you and me who care about reaching our life's goals.
everybody, thanks so
We
much
have a
for
monthly
tuning
call
in.
to hold each other accountable.
Do we need to
Not
do something with her
mention
mic?
our favorite part, the hot
When I was
seat
looking at it,
Yeah,
it
it's
looks like,
just like the
by
post
Linal
still like in the
Harris, a
center.
certified
So let's
life
make
coach.
that happen
Maybe it's
over
time
here.
to try
I'm trying to see if
something
I
new to
can-
reach your goals. Go to
Okay.
slayyourgoals.com and download his book for free. Then sign up for the
SlayYourGoals.com. That's great. Let me get off this phone and sign up right now.
Take your goal setting to the next level at slayyourgoals.com.
Give us your stop and stop.
I just did it, so hopefully it's working.
so she need to come over a little bit? Or is it-
No, it's fine. You stay right there. I moved the
Okay.
camera.
All right, we're back. You are listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach, right here on WBON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. Well, if you didn't know, less than 48 hours left in 2018. When I left this morning, my wife, she would say, "Where you going? What day is this?" I said, "You tired, baby. You tired. Go back to sleep." Right? I'm sure she's up now and probably sending angry faces on Facebook right now. But so if you didn't know, it's December 30th and 7:34 a.m. And I have with me in the studio this morning Yuri and John Cruzat. So again, thank you all for being here. They're the
for having
founders of Learning Forgiveness. Before we went to break, we were talking about what's unfinished and how to, come to terms with what may be unfinished this year. And I promised I'd share 3 things for you to consider. So the first is make a list of what's unfinished. And then make a powerful decision to get this, to forgive yourself for the incompletion. And then the next step is declare a new goal. Just because the year is run out and things are unfinished doesn't mean that has to remain unfinished. I mean, as long as we have breath in our lungs and we have the beauty of health and strength, then we can endeavor to continue, right? And so create a new goal. And what's important about declaring something is that you declare it and you time bound it, right? You time it.
Right.
So let's take the book for instance. I said, okay, that's unfinished, and I'll set a new goal, and that will be done by X date in 2019. The manuscript will be written by X date in 2019. And so the energy of 2018 is gone, and now the focus is on creation in 2019 in a powerful
That's right.
way. And then the last question is, what are you leaving behind? Which is a phenomenal segue. But the last question is, what are you leaving behind? And often, in order for us to leave something behind, there's a level of forgiveness that needs to take place. And in the document I sent out, I told them that you may want to write these things on a sheet of paper and destroy it, burn it in a symbolic gesture that that you're done, it's over, right? But I think this really brings me to some of the questions I have for you all, because I've read through. I went through your website completely. The only thing I didn't do, and I'm really sorry I didn't, and I'll probably do it at the top of the hour, is the forgiveness assessment.
Oh, the assessment.
Yeah. So I'll likely do it at the top of the hour. We'll have a few minutes.
We enjoyed developing that.
Yeah. So I'll take the forgiveness assessment. But first, tell people where they can learn more about you and where they can take this assessment and find the book.
Sure. Just go to learningforgiveness.com, and right there you can click on the free assessment, and it will take you through a series of about 14 questions or so. It's about 5 to 7 minutes, and we have something called a forgiveness meter.
Yes.
In terms of, we're really authentic. We're all crazy. It's just, where are you on this continuum of crazy?
Yeah.
And so
hold on. Do you think everybody believes that?
I think everyone knows they have a little crazy.
Everybody's got
You
something.
think so?
Something that
You
they
think
do.
everybody knows that though?
Right.
I don't think they all know it.
Okay.
But that makes them even crazier.
But hopefully they're surrounded, right?
Okay.
And hopefully they're surrounded with someone
Right.
honest enough to tell
point it
them.
at it, right?
Yeah.
And if
In love.
yeah,
In love.
yeah. And if they can't acknowledge it and no one else can acknowledge it, they might be very lonely. I
Yeah,
imagine.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So this meter
Yeah.
just sort of places you on, sort of where you are in this journey of forgiveness. All the way from, working toward wholeness, want to forgive but may not really know how to do it, to I know I need to forgive and I ain't trying to.
Ooh, okay, got it. Which people can. You
Yeah,
can be there.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
that's only because they don't understand the idea of forgiveness.
And let me tell you something. As I was listening to the book, it really got me present to some areas where I've been stubborn in that way. There are some relationships where, I feel like I've been wronged.
Right.
And so in a righteous way, it's kind of like, hey, it is what it is. And so I'm listening to the book and I'm like, wow, now, you might need to dig into these areas, right? Because sometimes they're in the background.
That's right. You
And
think
you're not-
you've forgiven.
Well,
and
no, I know I haven't.
Right.
I've just kind of settled it like,
rough.
you know what? Hey, this person wronged me. And by the way, this is early 20s. 20 years ago. 20 years ago, something took place and I was wronged. And I know I was
And you
wronged.
had every legitimate right
Yeah,
to have the position you have.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I have.
Because that's where the conversation
I have
of forgiveness begins.
the legitimate right to have
a
this
legitimate
position.
offense.
And so what I've said to myself is, this person's out of my life. And regardless of what they need, regardless of what's going on, I'm kind of like, whatever. And so I'm listening to the book. And by the way, I don't think about this every day, right? I don't even realize it,
No
right?
one does.
Absolutely.
And I'm listening to the book, and that person popped into my mind.
Wow.
I said, oh, wow. And they know they wronged me. And they're a family member, by the way.
Oh.
A cousin.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so as we've grown and gotten older, they've come back and tried to address it with me like, hey man, I'm like, you know what, dude, it is what it is. All right. I know who you are. You know who I am. Because I'm kind of like, I'm not opening myself back up to that.
Right.
And this my cousin, he has a family now, and all kind of, I'm a much different person than I was in my 20s, right? And the book really, I just kind of forgot about it.
And see, that's the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Reconciliation is a completely different concept and not necessarily required to complete the forgiveness work.
Okay.
Because forgiveness is about you,
Yeah.
and that's it.
I like that. I like how you really, so the difference between reconciliation and forgiveness.
Right.
That's right. Because
Got
some
it.
people you don't need to fool with anymore,
Yes.
quite frankly.
It's, not, it's
You
just
know?
not safe.
You're
Yeah.
right.
So-
It's not safe. They're not in a healthy place. It could bring you back into a bad space. So you want to be able to. The forgiveness is that you can have a wholeness in you that doesn't have negative thoughts of them any longer. You're not repeating the offense in your head. Replaying the video of this hurt over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
You're not justifying it anymore. You say, you just don't know what they did to me, kind of thing. You've just released all of that, and your thoughts are about their well-being, about them becoming whole, and you also being safe and realizing, you know what, until they get there, I don't have to fool with them now.
And that's what I realized, is that I had excused myself of any responsibility for affirming who I desired them to be, praying for them, like all of it. It was just
Yeah.
kind of like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Right,
They
exactly.
don't exist.
And
Right.
and reading, and not reading the book, but listening to the book, that came to mind. I was okay, I have some work to do there.
And once you've begun
Yeah.
the forgiveness work,
Yeah.
you're in a more informed position to make the decision of whether or not you need to reconcile with that person or not.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Because reconciliation has absolutely nothing to do with the inward work that forgiveness completes.
Right.
Completion.
Right.
So that you can launch out and make better decisions about who you have relationships with.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something. In this case, I don't know that it's about reconciliation as much as it is about me allowing the power of forgiveness to transform my heart and how
That's
I
right.
feel about them and who I can be as an individual. Right? Because that's like we said, we're all flawed in some ways. And listening to the book, I was like, oh wow. I mean, because this is kind of, it's been a stance I've taken, and then it becomes almost automatic. And you're not present to it. And all the transformational work I've done, it wasn't until I was really, maybe one time in coaching it came up, but until I was listening to the book where it popped back into my spirit, and I was like, oh, that's there. Okay.
And it creates this, and for us as believers, it blocks this intimacy with Christ. The very nature of who he is forgiveness.
Man, big time.
So,
Yeah.
excuse me, so holding on to that makes it very difficult. Our grace has been extended to us how many times?
Yep. Exactly. And the scary part for me was that I didn't even realize I was holding on.
Right. And that's not uncommon.
It just can't. I mean, like I said, I'm listening to the book, and then it kind of popped up, and I was like, wait a second, because what I love about the book is the dive you all take into forgiveness actually has you in a meditative, reflective state where you're searching yourself.
We knew that would be essential because people rarely just stop and listen.
Yeah. And so I'm searching myself, and then, something like that pops up, and you're like, wow, okay. And one of the reasons why I would really challenge the listeners to go out to Audible or go on your website and purchase the book. Because, in learningforgiveness.com, right?
Correct.
And purchase the book because many of us, we don't necessarily always know what may be getting in our ways. And if there are goals, if there are things that you're trying to create, you're looking to moving forward, and you realize that you're constantly spinning your wheels, it could be something from the past that kind of has you tethered. And the work that you all are doing really brings that to the forefront so it can be dealt with.
That's right.
And I really love that.
Well, this idea of finishing strong.
Yes.
What are you going to leave
Yes.
in 2018? This whole last couple of weeks, we have something that we do on Fridays called Forgiveness Fridays.
Yes.
And it's just an intention.
Which I have to get on that. So when I take
Yeah.
the assessment,
Yeah.
will that put me on the mail list for this?
Absolutely. Well, and it's on our Facebook page, so you can just go
Okay.
to that.
All right.
Yeah.
Now I prefer
Right.
my email.
Yeah,
I'll just come
absolutely,
to me. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And those who have been on our email list are going to get a little
Okay.
bit more robust on our Forgiveness Fridays too, because we've been really doing video. People's attention span is
Oh, tell me about it. Especially for
Yeah.
this type of work.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
don't think people realize that when it comes to self-development,
Yeah.
when it comes to really setting yourself up in a way where you're your best self, there's going to be a lot of resistance to that.
A lot.
There is.
So your email pops up, and right underneath that is CBS Sports. Where they gonna go? You know, and it's what they really need is to open that and be with the Learning Forgiveness or Forgiveness Fridays email and kind of sit and listen to that. But the world of sports and basketball and football, or somebody's cat doing backflips,
Right.
it just seems to be more important in the moment.
Right.
And I think that's where we have to train ourselves to be much better at being disciplined around the things that will help us.
Right.
Well, it's creating an intention,
Yes, absolutely.
you know, and that's what the practice of yoga has helped us to do, is to be really intentional around what we're thinking and having the emotional balance, I guess, and intelligence
Hmm.
to bring yourself back to a steady state so that your emotions don't take you down a slippery slope of anger and just losing it.
So I was gonna wait on the yoga, but we can go there.
Oh,
We can go there. No, it's all right. This is fluid. This is fluid. We can just flow. So let's talk about that. So as I shared with Yuri and I were having a conversation this week in preparation for the show. I was sharing with you or Yuri. I'm like, you guys only do yoga on the South Side. I would love to come. Partly because I have found yoga for me to really help me get centered. And I was sharing with Yuri on the phone that if I start my day with some level of stretching, right?
Yeah.
And yoga. But then, if I'm in the middle of the day and I find myself getting somewhat anxious, maybe I'm working on a project that's difficult, and maybe I had a tough coaching call where, it was, sometimes those calls can get somewhat
They get
contentious,
intense.
right? Yeah, they can get
Right.
intense, right? Afterwards, and I have a client in 15 minutes, and I have to be present for them, right? Sometimes what I will do is I'll clear my space, and I have this rug in my office that's actually I bought it with the intention, one, for how it looks, but two, because it's nice and soft, and then I can because my yoga mat.
Nice.
And I'll step out there and I'll stretch, and it really helps me get present. More than anything, get present to myself. I think the process of stretching and being fully in the
Breathing.
moment and breathing, and being present to my body, spirit, and mind.
Right.
Really. So tell me, what is the intersection of yoga and forgiveness?
Well, we were taught that the human existence has kind of three components: spirit, soul, and body. The spirit, that thing that connects with the divine, God, whatever you decide to call it. Your soul, that consists of your mind, will, and emotions, those things that kind of project your personality into the world. And then your body, this vehicle that we move around in. And the neglect of any one of those three creates an imbalance in your life, and it requires disciplined effort in all three areas to kind of help you be the best person that you can be in this life.
Got it. I firmly agree with that. Yeah.
And so this intersection with forgiveness is that, imagine in your spirit, if you're walking around just vexed and angry and not really any sort of spiritual connection beyond. A lot of people, I don't know how they do it, but they don't have any connection with anything beyond what they see in this world right now.
They
That's
rely
true.
on their emotions for
Yeah.
all of their
Everything.
decision
For
making.
Everything. Yeah.
That's what guides them. So if you allow emotions to sway you, the word tells you the heart will deceive you.
Man.
The heart will absolutely deceive you. So if you are in your feelings and you're not, allowing just either the block from an offense, or some people are angry at God, just whatever that is, those blocks don't prevent there to be this continuity between spirit, soul, and body.
Got it.
So
Got
that
it.
ability to have that release, to lift yourself from the offense, to lift yourself from past hurts and shame, allows you to really be able to flow throughout those three aspects of your life.
Got it. So in some ways, it's a slowing down and create like a almost like the opportunity for personal assessment. Because I'll tell you, I have epiphanies when I'm doing yoga.
That's right.
Things come clear. I get in some ways I can tap into the intention or the commitment I've made in a new way. when I just slow down and I'm being fully present.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, oftentimes people are either dealing with the hurt, shame, and doubt from the past, or the anxiety and despair and anxiousness and fear of the future, and they just toggle back between those two worlds. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I get it. I get
Never
it.
present.
Never just present.
Exactly.
Like, just stop. I'm create a space for some clarity.
And I mean, and I think about the torture of living in the past.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, even if you know, we've seen the movies where you get the high school football star, and you know, the torture of living in the past, because he's living back when he was a star and everybody
Right.
knew him, everybody saw him a particular way, and it makes his present so difficult to be in because he's actually using the past to
Still
torture
there.
himself. Yeah,
That's
he's
right.
still back there, right? So even if it was a great past, the fact that he's not fully present, I can't even imagine if the past was horrible or you know, some trauma took place and I'm living in that place, then why would I be there when I can recreate in the present? But many of us are, and what you all are saying is because it hasn't been dealt with. It hasn't.
Right. And forgiveness creates the space, like you said, to be present, and things will come to you. Like you remembered that offense
Yeah, absolutely.
from that family member because you stopped. Had you never stopped, you probably would have gone on just fine and everything would have been
I
great.
mean, I've been creating just fine.
Right.
Everything's just fine.
But now that you have an opportunity to address that, you open up another area in your personal being that can grow, that can be healthier, that can receive blessings and even more great opportunities to deal with whatever you need to deal with going forward.
And I'll tell you
It's
what I
one
did.
less thing.
Yeah, what I did is in coaching we have what we call a 3-letter series, and it's for relationships. And what you do is you write a letter, an angry letter, all the negative feelings, and there are no rules to this letter.
Nice.
I mean, you can say whatever there is to say. The second letter is how am I responsible, right? And where can I accept some responsibility here? And then the third letter is acknowledgement. And so because I was driving when I was headed to the barbershop when this all happened, right? So I was headed to the barbershop, I'm driving, I have this thought, I pull up at the barber, and I text him, I say, are you ready for me? He's like, of course he wasn't, right? Right? And so I sat in the car for a moment and I wrote this letter.
Wow.
And let me tell you, here's what I got from, you know, and I'm so thankful that I had I'm interviewing you all, I went through this process, because what I got is where I was responsible. Where I was responsible was I created the space for the offense. There were things that he was doing that were wrong, that I knew was wrong, and I supported him in doing it.
Wow.
So then when the wrong came back on me, I was, you know, then I'm upset,
Right.
right?
Wow.
And I saw that for the first time. And then the second thing was in the acknowledgement piece, because what my cousin taught me, I've used to help navigate in my life. And what he taught me is to stay away from certain elements.
Powerful.
Yes, it's, you know, not to, you know, to build intimate relationships with people who maybe, you know, substance abusers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
Right.
And as a result of that, I don't have those type of issues in my life anymore. So there's actually a gift he gave me in all of it. And so for me to hold him that way is hurting me, and in many ways may not even be hurting him anymore, but it's hurting me more than anybody. And so after I wrote the letter, it was like
That's right.
okay,
A release.
wow, yeah, release, and it's over.
And if you were ever faced with a encounter with him, friendly encounter
Oh,
with him,
it'd be much different.
it'll be so much
It's
different.
I can
because you're
guarantee
free.
you.
Yeah.
Because just his brother and I are really good friends. I mean, we're family members and friends, and his brother recently was celebrating the birth of a baby and baby shower and all that. My wife and I, we showed up. He was there. He's like, "What's up, cuz?" I'm like, "What's up, man?" You know,
Sure.
like the same old.
Cool.
Don't
Right.
mess with me. You
Right,
know,
right.
since it's Sunday, don't mess with me. Right? Stay over there. I stay over here. Right?
Warm but not friendly.
Exactly. No, I wasn't warm.
Maybe even not warm.
It wasn't warm. I'll be honest, it wasn't warm. I was like, "What's up, bro?" You know, like keep it moving, man.
Sure.
You know, and then of course, he's witnessing the warmth I show his brother and as everybody else, right? So it's kind of like, yeah. And what we do these things, and we send a message. We know what we're doing. I mean, we know exactly what I'm being warm over here, but I'm not being cold over there. So we know what we're doing, and so that's part of the behavior.
That's right.
That's part of the behavior, and so I'm positive the next time that I encounter him, it'll be very different. Because
your will, mind, and emotions right there actually affected your spirit man.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a disingenuous sort of exchange. The warmth that you gave the other folks was slightly tainted because you couldn't do it authentically.
Yeah, and I realize that now.
Yeah,
exactly.
right, now.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because in the moment it was like,
No,
yeah,
You were all good.
yeah. I
Because
was like,
emotionally
it's
you
all
were
good.
fixed.
Yeah,
You knew.
yeah. And so I'm sure he'll experience something different. I'm positive. As,
right.
And that's exciting for you because it also repositions you to receive the forgiveness you'll inevitably need from God, from your family, from others, because now you're being able to demonstrate it.
Well, and the other piece is there's a commitment that I've made in my life and an intention I have for my life, and that is to be loved.
That's right. Just
Right.
be it.
To be loved.
Body it.
Exactly. And so here's an area of my life where I hadn't been doing that, and it was a blind spot. And the beauty of the work you all do is that it brought it to the surface for me and gave me an opportunity to address it. I want to thank you for that.
Right. And that's what brought it to the surface
For
in our
us.
lives.
Yes.
That's how it
Which, when we go into the next hour, the question I want to ask the Cruzats is, how has forgiveness transformed their lives? Because obviously, if they're doing this type of work, that typically those of us who are doing this type of work, there was a struggle, I'm guessing, at some point where you began to realize that forgiveness is the key. You really hunkered in and began to do this work so that you all could rise above those challenges that you had. I want to learn about that, and I know the listeners do. I know they want to learn about it. And we're going to take some phone calls, 773-591-1690, because I know you all have questions as well, because we're talking forgiveness. And if I had questions, I know you all have questions, and we're going into a brand new year. And what better way to go into a new year but whole, complete, and powerful? And that's really what this is about. How to complete your year powerfully in a way that takes you to the next level, because that's what this work is all about.
That's right.
So once again, Yuri and John Cruzat, stay tuned. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. We'll be right back. All right.
Yeah, trust me, we have to, even though we teach it and help others, we are still on our forgiveness journey. It never ends. Because there's always something else. Always something else.
All right.
You get to practice what you preach.
So we got some comments on Facebook. Always go here to see if we got questions. Can you please share the name of the book just signed on?
1690 WVON, Berwyn, Chicago.
So,
Did you want some more?
the name of the book
Democrats
is Learning
and
Forgiveness.
Blaming the Democrats.
Oh yeah, 7 days.
Christian
7 days.
Cruz, President Trump is at the White House this morning after
7 days
canceling a
forgiveness.
vacation to his private Florida club
All
during
right.
the tense
And that
government
was to
shutdown.
D,
Correspondent
so
Sarah
hopefully
Westwood
you
says the
saw that.
president is blaming top Democrats for the ongoing budget
The
impasse.
president has been
see.
faulting
Good
congressional
morning, good morning,
Democrats
everybody.
for the stalemate that has
Good
prolonged
morning.
this shutdown into an 8th day. He's been saying that they haven't been willing to deal on funding for the wall or for border security. And he's been pointing the finger specifically at House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. He and other administration officials have claimed that Pelosi is unwilling to accept any kind of compromise with this administration before her speakership election on January 3rd, because that could put her gavel at risk.
As for ending the shutdown, there's been
So
no
I chopped it up
movement
and
detected
all
from.
on YouTube, so if you want
Okay.
a rough file.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great.
That's what these fine gentlemen, their expertise. Yeah.
Hey, Carmelita.
Awesome. To take the forgiveness assessment, so we have the forgiveness assessment on here. People to take. All right, great exercise for the 3-letter series. If you wrote that down, that's some free coaching.
I won't charge you for that one, right?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I love that. So, Kenty said, sounds like this is kind of like cleaning out what's running in the background.
But even the mayor of Portland, Ted Wheeler, is saying that all of this is
I would
part
call
of
it
the systemic
defragging.
nature of
You know how your computer starts running
against
slow?
African Americans in America. That happens
Yeah.
way too
In
often.
fact, in the book,
The
we
sheriff in
talk about
California
having
who
an
led the
operating
investigation into the
system
deadly
Absolutely.
shooting of a police
Yeah.
officer this past
That's
week.
what you're
I didn't even
doing.
think about it that way.
Sanctuary
Yeah.
law
Optimal
Optimal, yeah, we're gonna talk about
the
that when we get
alleged
back.
killer to
You know, part of the reason
immigration
you want to
officials.
defrag
Christopher Cruz.
your operating system before you go into the
Did
new
you know
year.
carbon
right.
monoxide is odorless and invisible?
That's right.
Help ensure your family is protected from the dangers of carbon monoxide. CO alarms should be installed on every level
Oh,
and
man.
in every bedroom. And remember, alarms don't last forever, and it's important
So
to
there's a
replace
question,
them
what does
every
the
5 to 10
post-forgiveness
years.
process look
First
like?
Alert has been protecting homes
So I'm
and
guessing
families since
after
1958 and
forgiveness,
encourages you to learn more about home safety
I guess
at
what are some tips
firstalert.com and
for
visit
people to
Lowe's
take
Home
on
Improvement stores to purchase carbon
after
monoxide
they've kind of
alarms
gone through this
today.
process?
Well, see, that's why
My
we call
family's
it a
well-being
practice.
is what I'm all
Process
about.
does
And
indicate
now with
an
Caseta by
endpoint.
Lutron,
Yeah.
I got that peace of mind.
Yeah.
Caseta
Because
is a
as soon as you
Yeah.
forgive someone, they may reoffend or someone else will. Or you might need to forgive yourself. And as you live, you just don't want to
Yep.
walk with the accumulation of all those things. And that's what happens.
I think
And you know
the
what? That
practice
just-
is knowing the triggers so that you don't reinvent them back, you don't reintroduce them back into your life. And then being aware of new triggers that could surface.
Ah.
So that's why this is about
You all talk
refining.
about the triggers, yeah, in the book. Just go download the book.
It's a practice.
Just go download. Let's go download the book. All these questions are being hissed. That's good though.
But post forgiveness, I don't even know if that's freedom, you know.
Once you've done it, you can do whatever you want.
Can you forgive without telling the person you were at odds with them?
Most people are forgiving people that are deceased,
I mean, I just did that.
that traumatized them.
Yeah, I just forgave without.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
without it having to have a confrontation around, I'm forgiving you now.
I'll be right back. Throw this away.
Women join in the American military. They're changing
That's
the veterans
common.
vote. The national poll of
People
midterm
forgiving
voters
parents that
by the
hurt them,
Associated Press
Yeah.
found
that are
female
deceased
veterans
now.
were more likely to vote for
Can you ima- I mean,
Democrats
there's
than
folks that are still holding on to anger for people
60% to
who died.
36%.
Well, some of them caused
You
trouble,
know,
and they just didn't know how to work
they
through
can just
it.
never get
Because we
past
need
that
help
healing.
with this.
Absolutely.
That's what we don't acknowledge in most cases, that everybody needs a little help with
We need to
this.
break up. You're just, you're not good for me.
I remember when I was in school,
I'm not getting any benefits from this relationship.
You're just a basic memory foam mattress.
Oh, yeah.
I deserve better. And before you ask, yes, there is someone else. I've been seeing the purple mattress online for a while now. But don't blame yourself. How can you compete with a bed that totally supports me?
And that's the power
Puts
of
my
those
pressure
Hebrew and
points
Greek
and sleeps so
translations.
effortlessly
We don't
cool.
really
Not to
understand
mention the 100-night trial
language.
and free
So that when you
shipping.
have an opportunity to
Now
look
that's
at
a
one
bed
word
with
and
benefits.
just
It'll make me feel
it
better than you
opens
ever
up.
could.
Break
That's
up with your old
huge.
mattress and get with the
Did
Purple
you-
today.
are you
Get a
gonna finish?
$100 store credit with the purchase of a mattress. Just text IMPROVE to 474747 to get your $100 store
It's
credit. The
fascinating,
only way to get
either
this
way.
exclusive offer is to text IMPROVE to 474747. That's IMPROVE to
All right. So good
474747.
questions.
Hi,
I love
I'm
the
Barry
book.
James,
Great
co-owner of
question.
Island
Yeah,
Furs.
great setup.
It's that time of year again. The holidays and the Hulk are here.
It'd be good to
So
listen
come
to
on
this
into
again.
Island Furs and take advantage of our super pre-holiday
so we can
sale.
give you an audio
Save
copy
from
as
40 to
well.
70% off
And then
our
we'll
beautiful
talk about
furs, leathers, and shearlings.
Oh, that's
Remember,
great.
before you buy,
top it up.
stop by Island
I
Furs.
take
We
the high
appreciate your
points of
business.
some of the
Thanks
things,
again from Barry, Gerald, and the
I like
entire
what you were
staff
saying
at
about,
Island Furs. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
They can't-
See you at Island
when the-
Furs,
when the commercial's playing, they can't hear
1827
what they
West 103rd Street,
yeah.
773-881 Furs. That's 773-881-3877.
That's so
We're
close,
open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 7
So I just thought about something too,
Saturdays, 10
that
a.m.
I would
to 6
find
p.m.
reasons
Sunday,
to
noon
continue
5.
to
Again,
hold
happy
my
holidays.
Yeah, like for instance, you know, my parents divorced. We were at a family function some years ago, and he's like, he just brought it up. everybody's sitting around. He's like, yeah, man, what's going on
This
with
is
your parents?
Melissa Washington,
You know that
Vice
voice.
President of External Affairs. And
You know, so then it's like,
Services at
that's why I
Columbia.
don't mess with
No,
you. Yeah, so yeah, it's just like, you know, and then it's kind of like, yeah, this kind of builds and
We call
And
it
you may be
stacking.
justified by not.
and I actually wrote that down, so I want you all to talk about stacking.
Stacking.
I want you to talk about stacking.
Which means
Because when you have, when someone's offended you,
Yeah.
it's very easy to continue to justify, and that's the stacking.
Right.
Yeah, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
see, there you go again with that.
And I think even
Yeah.
in close relationships, stacking can be.
In marriage, let me tell you.
That's the first thing I thought about is where am I
will
stacking
kill
with
your-
my wife?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
am I
you
stacking
go
with my
again.
wife? Yeah. You always late.
Yeah, you
Oh, yeah.
always.
Or, you know, something like that. Yeah.
Something like
We call it
anything
already,
repetitive.
already always listening.
Yeah.
Oh,
You are ready to hear it. You are tuned and
And as
tweaked
soon as it
for
happens,
and it happens like,
boom, there
there
you
it
go.
is.
You like,
There you
Yeah,
go again.
That's it. And that's that trigger, and before you know it, you're now arguing about something that is
From the
accumulation of the
The
past,
past.
and it has nothing to do
Nothing
with
to do with the issue that started the argument.
Now, trust plays a really key part of forgiveness.
Absolutely.
That's one thing I've always had a problem with. You know,
Your trust being violated?
exactly.
But that's why there's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation.
Okay.
You may not need to reconcile with someone who's not trustworthy, but you don't hold on to the resentment and the anger as it relates to them. You know, you don't give them your power.
The thing though is when you see them again,
When you see them again, yeah, how do you feel?
you'll know if your forgiveness is real. Because you'll feel all the emotions if you're thinking about what they did. But that's why it's a practice. If you find that you haven't finished it, you just keep going because it's for you. You to be free. Not necessarily heal the relationship, but so that you can go forward and heal. And then if you reconcile, you reconcile. It's good. It's in a different
But you
way.
permit that person to be where they are on their
You
journey.
allow it. Right.
You allow them to be where they are.
Just
And
like
you don't,
the
and you
Hebrew.
just say, you know what? That might be where you are,
That's
but
where
I'm not
you are.
gonna stay
That's not
there.
where I'm at.
Yeah. For those of you still on Facebook, share the stream. Forgiveness is not one of those sexy topics,
No,
right?
challenging.
But I'm gonna tell you something. One of the reasons I asked them to be on the show is because for those of us who are really committed to going to the next level and challenging ourselves to be our best selves, like it's necessary. It's one of those necessary conversations, right?
Right.
And I'm always aware of the level of resistance that takes place for me. Like so, yesterday I was feeling well, all kinds of stuff, right? This is kind of like, what am I up to that has this going on? I'm like, I got John and Yuri coming on talking about forgiveness, and that's you know that's
We
something.
don't always connect those dots, do we?
Yeah, but the other piece is I've never talked about forgiveness on the show.
Oh wow.
I've never talked about maybe completion, right? We talk about completion and getting complete, but never a whole show on forgiveness. And I think it's for our community, it's a very powerful topic.
Oh, we've got some historical
And
issues.
it's not sexy. It's not. And it's one of the reasons I titled it the way I did. You know, how to complete your year powerfully.
Right.
You know, because
Nobody's gonna tune in for forgiveness. Be like, what are you talking about?
and that's one of our challenges where, you know, and I have to even ask myself, would I tune in for a show that says how to forgive? Because I would think right off, well,
I'm not harboring
good.
anything.
Yeah, until I listen to the book.
Until you're not.
Exactly.
I'm good until
Then
I'm
you're like,
not.
oh wait, there is something.
Midway Broadcasting
So,
Corporation. All participating sponsors.
From the Xfinity Studios at WVON.
can we put the speaker back up?
You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Habarigani to everyone out there celebrating Kwanzaa. Happy Kwanzaa. And today's principle is Nia, which is purpose. I actually have a Nia question for the phenomenal couple I have in the studio this morning with me, Yuri and John Cruzat, who are the founders of Learning Forgiveness. And we've had a phenomenal first hour. I mean, we talked about, I shared 5 questions on how to complete your year powerfully. Now we're talking about the power of forgiveness and how forgiveness really transforms us into the best people, best person that we can be. If you happen to miss the first hour, you can always go on Facebook, facebook.com/Linal Harris to check out the stream. And then, of course, this is always available on the Inspirational Perspective podcast in a few weeks. But you don't want to wait that long because we have 48 hours. 48 hours into the new year. Let me tell you, what we've been talking about is powerful. And the work that this couple does has already helped me. I had the opportunity to listen to the audiobook 7 Days of Forgiveness, which is available on their website for $7.99 on the website, learningforgiveness.com. And let me tell you something. Go to the website. Go to the website, purchase the book. I know you can get it for less on Audible, but again, yesterday was Umaja, which is Cooperative Economics by Black, right?
Yes.
And so let's give them their due and support them fully by going to their website and purchasing this book.
Thank you.
So phenomenal first hour. I've already learned a lot, and I want to dive into. We got a couple of phone calls that have come in, and actually, let's take Sal's phone call, and then after his phone call, I want to learn more about how forgiveness transformed your lives. Okay. Because I know that whenever we're called to do a work, it's typically in an area that we had to surmount some things. And I definitely know that I want to hear the story, and I know the listeners want to hear the story. But real quick, Sal, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, good people.
Morning.
Good morning.
Linal, I have already written a letter, and I have said some very raunchy things in the letter to a relative of mine who has gone out of his way to violate me financially, caused me some discomfort, and interfered with my forward thrust. If I were to, and he's not seeking forgiveness as it was in your relative situation.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't own up to what he has done to me. I don't think that I have done anything to participate in the wrong that was committed. If I were to feel any other way, believe me, I would be violating my soul. Now, I have already deleted his telephone number from my cell phone. That's just how irritated I am with this idiot.
Mm-hmm.
But the same is true with a fairly well-known attorney here in the city. I've written him 2 letters regarding what he has done. I'm getting ready to take his ass to court.
Mm-hmm. So, Sal, I can tell there's some, you've admitted the incompletion. And I got the forgiveness experts here in the studio, so I'm curious. I'm curious. Like, what would you offer?
Everything he's done is fine. You should protect yourself and maybe even disconnect if you feel like there's the future potential for you to be taken advantage of. But forgiveness is not about them at all. Reconciliation is. You probably won't do business with them again. You probably should not unless they demonstrate some significant change. But beyond that, prior to that, the forgiveness work is about you being able to move forward without the weight or the aggravation, irritation, constant memory of those events. You have to be free from that, not only because it's better for you, but it also repositions you. Our forgiveness work is Bible-based. It's from a Judeo-Christian perspective. You will need forgiveness of your own at some point. And it repositions you not only to receive that forgiveness, but it also acknowledges that, you recognize people are imperfect and that the people that you had been dealing with are imperfect as well. But it can't steal your joy. It can't be a persistent memory that pollutes your thoughts and potentially the work that you have yet to do. And you also want to feel better. Like you said, it's your soul, your mind, will, and emotions need to be free of that, so that when you're interacting with other people, you're not tainted with the memory and the emotions of those events.
You want your spirit quieted around this.
Yeah. Sel, my experience of you is, typically you're positive. And talking about this, Ben, I can even sense the anger. And
and it's legitimate. That's the whole idea of forgiveness, is that there has to be a legitimate and real offense, betrayal, trauma, something that really happened that you have to face if you want to move forward in joy and peace. People carry stuff for their entire lives, and you have the choice to do that. We don't spend a lot of time convincing people that they should forgive, because I think at some level everyone knows it's something we should do. This is for the people who are ready to take the step.
I got it. I'm ready to take the step.
Now you have a tool
right
that will help you practice being in a posture of forgiveness, so that when things do happen, and they will, you're in a better place to do it more efficiently.
And I would even say it's the distinction between I'm good versus I'm great. When we talk about this
good
gap,
is the enemy of great.
Good is the enemy of great. Jim Collins says that. Yeah, you can slide through, you can just get by. I can just kind of be mediocre, and how I feel. But to powerfully express all that you are, to create the largest amount of possibilities in your life, to free yourself up from past hurts and offenses so that you can actually move powerfully. You might be good, but could you be great? And that's what this unforgiveness and replaying the video of the hurt, holding on to the offense, Sal, it hurts you more than it's going to hurt your family member.
You know what? This is what it just brought to mind is how powerful the work you all are doing. So this is a story I heard. I was in Rwanda, and as we were moving around Rwanda, I was told the story about an attorney had a big practice, and one of his partners. As his he brought in another partner attorney, and that partner attorney, as the practice grew, began to get jealous because he was working for him, and he saw how big the practice was growing, and he felt like he was a part of the reason the practice had grown so big. And so he began to operate behind his back, but asked for more money, operate behind his back. Long story short, the practice began to deteriorate.
Absolutely.
And when the original attorney who started all this found out about it, he, of course, let that attorney go and, made his practice smaller. And since then, has never, ever expanded his practice again. Right. And when you were just sharing what you shared, I thought, wow, it's likely because he hasn't forgiven that other attorney. And with that hurt still being there, he has not been able to
trust anyone else again.
Yeah, and he has not been able to move forward powerfully since. Right. And to think that one offense for that person has eliminated his ability to expand and grow when he has the capability. He did it once, right? Yeah. But as an entrepreneur, I know my wife and I, we talk all the time, like hiring people and can I trust them? Yes. And if you have a negative experience, then in a certain area that will make you a little, gun shy to move forward. And what I hear you all saying is that's why this practice of forgiveness is so important, whether it's in a marriage, whether it's in a business,
Because it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Well, and it's about distinguishing between the wisdom of the situation and the worry of the situation.
So tell me more about that.
So take what you need to get out of the learning. Get the learning. Get the understanding.
Yes,
gain the clarity, the wisdom, gain the clarity. But if you stay in the worry and the defeat and the disappointment and the justification, you can never.
It'll steal your power.
It'll steal your power because you've given it to that
And
situation or that
stifle
person.
your movement.
Wow.
That's how you get stuck.
Wow. So the big question that I'm sure everybody wants to know is, how did you all get into this work? I mean, so it's not every day, you say, I'm going to write a book on forgiveness. And
It's not in our plan.
we're going to provide a forgiveness ministry for others. So I'm curious, what had you all started? Like, what is the core of your purpose? And I'd love to hear that story. I'm sure the listeners would too.
The people that know me know I spent 20 years in the Army.
Okay.
So my forgiveness work began with me. There were some things that we were involved in, trauma, things that I had not moved forward from, along with so many other veterans, many of which you'll see if you just walk around the city.
Yeah, true.
Getting stuck in the trauma of war and the things that happen, the decisions you make, wrong decisions even in some cases, or even right ones that create pain for yourself and others. So that was my issue. And I had been working through that as best I could, unsuccessfully, and pretending to be functional and doing the things that I needed to do on a day-to-day basis, but I knew that I needed more, even as a Christian, even as a parent, a husband, and this is our third marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't being successful in that forgiveness work.
Got it.
And then something happened to Yuri that changed all of that I'll let her share.
So I have no way to say it other than it was a Holy Spirit encounter.
Okay.
I got waken up like at 2 a.m. And it was.
You talk about this in the book.
Yeah. I got a flood of emotions of people that I had held on to, offenses. We were actually we just got married. No, we were probably a few years in. Actually, we were a few years in, but it was new, right? And this is a blended family, and so you're dealing with ex-baby daddy, baby mama, all that stuff that just comes into.
And both of you all. So this is your third marriage, and this is your third marriage.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And I told him, when we got married, I said, someone gonna die old in this. So. I'm not trying to, and we want.
This is it.
This is it. This is a wrap. So if you're not
put it in a headlock. This is it,
and that's been tested right over the last decade.
I'm sure. Over the past 10 years.
I'm sure. How long have you all been married now?
It's been 8 years, 10 years together.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So we're in it.
So a decade. Yeah.
So anyway, I got waken up in the middle of the night, and the Holy Spirit just brought back to remembrance a lot of relationships because I was just finding myself angry on a hair trigger. And as a woman, you're the heartbeat of your family.
Yeah.
And when you begin to escalate, everyone else is sort of like walking around on eggshells. Mom ain't feeling right. It's just, and it's difficult. We're the heartbeat of our family. We really are.
Yeah.
And so when you find yourself escalating, I could go from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, because I've stacked some stuff from my prior interactions with my children or my family, and I had not released them. And I realized I hadn't forgiven them. And I'm like, why would I get so angry on that? It's like, because it reminded you of something else in the past, and you're bringing that past experience into my current narrative.
Wow. And in some ways recreating it.
And recreating it. And escalating it, not having the ability to compartmentalize the hurt.
Wow.
So the Holy Spirit said, I can't take you where I need to take you with all that baggage.
Yep.
And I started writing.
Got it.
I literally just started writing and wanted to be able to discern from him, what does he want me to do? And it was really difficult to figure out, Lord, what? Teach forgiveness?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm like, dude,
you're like, what?
Really? John, I think you said you woke up or something and you saw me in my phone.
It was 2 in the morning, something like that. And I
saw
the movement, and I saw the light, and I popped my eye open, and she was feverishly typing into her iPad. And I thought, well, I probably shouldn't bother because this looks like something's happening that I shouldn't interrupt, and I went back to sleep.
Yeah.
Well, I woke up a few hours later, and it was still going on.
It's still going, yeah.
And I was excited to hear about it, but I went back to sleep again so it could finish.
Right.
And then when we got up the next day...
You're a good man, John. And I think we know when our partners are motivated in a way where you're like, you know what, let me let that go. Let me let that flow. Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. And before I knew it, this whole process came together in terms of accomplishments. I think we're in a space now, in our 50s, where this is a culmination of all of that stuff.
Got it.
That we have been through, that we have grown through, that we have conquered, that we still struggle with, but we're learning to, have a delicate balance for those key and pill experts out there, the delicate balance of knowing, when to release stuff from the past, really operate in the current, and still be hopeful in the future, but with joy and peace.
Beautiful.
With like
real
joy
and peace.
Yeah, it's not something you conjure.
Yeah.
You can walk in it. You can literally experience it. And then when it's contested with life and relationships and all the things that you have to face every day, there's a way to get back to it quickly, and continue to share it with other people.
That's beautiful.
So as we began to just examine this, it just started to just build and grow. And before we knew it, we had started taking yoga. This is how God works. We just started taking yoga because we had made a decision to just be healthier.
Well, we had sciatica too.
We had sciatic nerve, which was like for your back. It was
and did it help?
I haven't had pain in 4 years.
I haven't either.
What?
Seriously, haven't had pain.
Okay, so I know
and it's just the movement part, because yoga is it can be spiritual, but we tap into just the movements.
All right, so I have a close family member that has a sciatic nerve problem right now. I'm not going to call him out, but yoga helps.
It really does.
Yoga helps. Yes.
But that's how we came up with the Just Breathe practice. He said, forgiveness is just like yoga, Yuri. It's a practice. And that's why breathe is, each letter of the word breathe is the curriculum.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called the Just Breathe practice.
Right, and the BREATHE
all of that
has an acronym
for
to
each
it.
one.
So easy to remember.
Yes, so I love that, and so it's the very personal experiences that you all have had, where you saw a deep need for forgiveness that led you to this work, and so
Absolutely.
And I'm curious about this. So Yuri, you have this moment where you're moved by the Spirit. And I think if somebody has never experienced that, it may sound weird.
I know it sounds spooky.
Right.
It's not.
I've had that experience.
Yeah.
And I know what it's like. And I know what it's like writing that way. And then looking at what you wrote, like, I wrote that?
Yeah.
I did that? Whoa. Okay. And then other people seeing it and realizing that it's motivated by the Spirit. Because let me tell you, I think you all are phenomenal. But this is next level.
That's right.
It's next level. What you shared. So when I'm listening to the book, I'm like, wow, this is really, really good. And you have that question in your mind, like, how did they write this? Like, how did they put all this together? And so it would make sense that it's divinely inspired, and it's something that we need. We need. John. So this happens, and at some point she shares it with you. What was that experience like?
I knew exactly what it was as soon as I looked at it, because I know her. We've both been to college. But like you said, that was next level.
Like this ain't, I love you, baby, but this ain't you.
And when you live with someone, you become intimately familiar with all their flaws.
Yes, absolutely.
It's easy to judge someone and point out what's wrong with them. And when something like that comes out of a flawed vessel, like we all are, something else was involved.
Yep.
And as soon as I looked at it, she said, "This is what we're supposed to do." And I immediately connected to it, leveraged it for myself, because I knew that I needed work. And that was the answer to my prayer, personally. And then the opportunity to share it was just the icing on the cake. Now we can tell others about it and see their lives change. And that was the last year.
So did I hear this correctly? So Yuri's inspired. She writes this. You needed the work.
I needed it.
So then you put it into practice.
Right.
Yep.
And saw how it transformed you and helped you.
Right.
So that you were able to fully own it and be a part of it as a result.
The only way I could share it.
Transformed us.
There you go.
Then it transformed us.
Got it.
I mean, like in a very deep, intimate, spiritual way. Like this is you know, it's my ride right here. This is it.
Yeah.
You know, and we just.
Well, I get that sense from you all. I mean, you meet couples all the time, and you get a sense from. I mean, you get a sense for whether those couples are in love or you know. They're together for this or that. We make these assumptions and things like that, right? They may be, I mean, their interpretations.
Or they may be in a rough patch.
Yeah. Or they could be in a rough patch, but their interpretations nonetheless. But then you also get these interpretations like, they together. Like, they in this.
Yeah.
And that's something I've always gotten from you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, where it's like, John and Yuri, like, they say they've been married 3 times, this is it. But there's something else going on that really has them bound to each other.
And we practice it.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy.
Yeah, no, marriage is
marriage
is difficult work.
It's a daily choice.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I mean, we had
like any commitment.
Yeah, we had to start out.
Any commitment.
We had to start out with rules of engagement. We were real deliberate. We were like, you know, let's take some of the stuff that we've learned and known, and like be authentic about our own stuff.
Right.
And we used to have this thing called Real Talk Mondays, and you could bring anything to each other on that Monday. That was an issue with the intention of we're gonna fix that thing.
And you got to bring your thick skin.
So
you can hear
the other
what
person,
your partner,
without defending it,
without positioning
you just
it.
take it. It's your fault. But the reason that's happening because you.
Right, or just whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but you both have the intention of this is going to get fixed.
And it's really what I'm hearing is taking your relationship to the next level, like continually refining the relationship.
Right.
Very much like we should be refining ourselves.
Right.
And then after Real Talk Mondays, it just became how we talk.
That's beautiful.
Because we practiced it.
Right. Practice. So the practice of the Real Talk Monday that has now taken you what I'm hearing to another level in your communication.
That's right.
Where you can call your husband and say, hey, here's what I'm feeling, or
that's right.
Am I putting words in your mouth?
No.
Okay.
Or did you just spend this money and we didn't talk about it? You know. I just have to take it.
Right. I did. It was on sale, baby. It was on sale. All right.
It's one time offer.
Right, yeah. I couldn't get it no other way. All right. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to dive more into why self-forgiveness is so important. And then there's a term called stacking that we're going to talk about. Yuri, you shared, you shared a little bit about stacking in terms of one thing would happen and you would just kind of fly off the hook. And in the book, you call this stacking.
Yeah.
And that stacking sometimes causes this. We're going to talk about that when we come back. We'll take a quick break. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. My guests in the studio this morning, Yuri and John Cruzat, founders of Learning Forgiveness. I'm Linal Harris, your life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago.
I can't believe it's almost the end of the year and I still haven't reached my goals.
Oh, yeah.
I'm tired of making goals and not reaching them.
You should be tired.
Good stuff.
You say that every year around this time. Remember when I told you about the definition?
This is reigniting us to go into the new year too, and
Finishing our year.
finishing our year strong.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. So, everything happens perfectly. I tell you, it all happens the way it's supposed to happen.
And gives you access to a community of others like you and me.
It's a great way to
about
be.
reaching our life's goals. We have a monthly call to hold each other accountable.
I'm
Not to
learning so
mention my
much.
favorite part, behind-the-scenes coaching.
And you would think that this would be information that's readily accessible or that someone else always did.
Yeah.
We were shocked to find out that this hadn't been done. And there's a Forgiveness Institute. There's a place
At the University of
where they
Wisconsin-Madison.
specialize in this.
Really?
All kind of books, all kind of
Well,
processes.
they do the stuff that we were talking about, like reconciliation councils for different countries. They have like social justice and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're back. All right, we're back. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach, right here on WVON 1690 AM, the talk of Chicago. I have, again, Yuri and John Cruzat, the founders of Learning Forgiveness. They're here in the studio with me this morning. Let me tell you, if you've missed the first 90 minutes of this segment, you definitely want to go back and listen to this all the way through. We were just talking on break how forgiveness is not something, it's not a popular topic, it's not something that's talked about, but so very needed. Because as human beings, we're all flawed, and we're getting our flaws all on other people, and they're getting them on us. And forgiveness is just a normal part of the living process, and such an important competence to have. And so thankful that you all are sharing more about this competence with us. I got a phone call here. Tommy, good morning. The board's not working for me.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, there we go. I'm good. How are you?
Great. You always got one of the best shows on the radio, man.
I appreciate that.
I always say I don't need a life coach, but you need a coach to help you with the people that got problems, whomever they may be. So now, get a moment of this. What you're talking about is awesome, man. First of all, the forgiveness piece is mandatory.
Yeah.
Now, your guests, I really admire them because a lot of times people say, oh, you've been married 3 times, that's a problem. But guess what? That's somebody that has a belief that maybe this didn't work, let me try it again. Let me try it again until you find the right person. That takes courage by itself. But with the forgiveness, I'm thinking about instant forgiveness. It's almost as if you have to do it right away. Because you think about it, most of the things that go on, a lot of times, it's people trying to put them on you. You're receiving them, but if you just let it go, it's not even your problem. So forgiveness sometimes is deep because it even goes as far as you forgiving yourself for what you didn't do. The last part I was going to mention was the fact you were talking about goals. All goals can't be attained or may not be attained because they may not be designed for you. You can set a goal, but that doesn't mean that's meant for it to happen that way. Some things will favor you, some things won't. It's just a matter of making that effort and seeing what comes up out of it. Sure appreciate you. Have a great one.
All right, you too. You too. I'm sitting with what Tommy said last.
Self-forgiveness.
Well, not the self-forgiveness part, but the goals. But I love what he said in terms of, the courage that it took for you all to get married. I tell my wife all the time, this don't work, I think I'm
done. That's not uncommon.
So this has got to work. This is it. This is it. But the goals part is what I'm sitting with. I got to sit with that. And the reason, Tommy, is because I believe that when we declare something from our mouth, it's a word of creation. And that if we're given an idea, that we're also given the ability to create on that idea. And often when we don't, it's because there's drag, like lack of forgiveness, like incompletion, like unresolved things that are dragging us, that if we were to use the tools of forgiveness and the work of, Yuri and John, that we may be able to deliver on those things. And we talked about the difference between fantasy and vision in a previous episode.
Sure.
Sometimes we have fantasies, right?
Right.
I want to be a singer, a global renowned, R&B artist. I'm like, well, no, that might be a fantasy, okay? Because it's not aligned with purpose. And but and I think that's the point, Tommy. I guess that we can actually agree and disagree that if the goal is aligned with your purpose and you're having trouble reaching it, it's likely there's drag.
Sure.
Which is part of the reason we're having this conversation, to help people eliminate that drag. But if the goal isn't aligned with purpose, then it might not be what you should be working on. So we can agree and disagree.
That's good.
But great comments, Tommy. Thank you so much for the phone call. To that point, talking about drag, why is self-forgiveness so important?
Because that was kind of the core of my forgiveness work. What I experienced was a level of release that allowed me to think bigger, change my conversation, the way that I interact with people, because the military is kind of built around this idea of conflict. We have to be able to engage with enemies, defeat enemy. It's a very zero-sum
game
prospect. And forgiveness opens me up. It opened me up for a lot more than that. I don't judge people. I never really did that, but I don't judge people. And I accept whatever offense that occurs because of my relationship with them as a learning opportunity. I'm able to move forward with it in a way that allows me to take those learnings and be a little more skilled in the way that I relate to people. Because there are some people that are just toxic. And you know that when you're engaged with them. And as opposed to judging them and allowing their offenses to scar you indefinitely, the forgiveness practice allows me to be in their presence, speak some life into them if the opportunity should arise, and then leave whole instead of leave wounded.
Wow. Wow.
I do think the self-forgiveness, too, is this opportunity to really examine the grace that has been given you. When you really look at the things that you might be disappointed about yourself or that you haven't done or whatever, it builds your, I think it builds your compassion threshold.
Big time. And I don't know that you can be a leader
without having...
I don't think so.
Without
not a good one. Not a good one.
Not a good
we see leaders.
We see leaders, yeah. But not a good leader.
Right.
Yeah, without the capacity for self-forgiveness. Right. Because what I'm learning in my walk is you can lead with the best of intentions, but people will still be offended. There's going to be someone who's going to feel like they didn't get what they were supposed to get from you.
That's right.
And there's going to be some offense. And then when you're leading with the intention to help, it hurts a bit.
Right.
And then if you look back at what took place and there's maybe something where you're like, well, could I have done that better?
Maybe we actually made a mistake.
Yeah, maybe I did make a mistake.
We made a bad call as a leader. And we need to be able to move forward with that.
And forgive ourselves.
Forgive ourselves, right?
Yeah, so I think that's really important.
Yeah. Own the impact. Own the intention and the impact. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just so that you can get past it in such a way that you can get the wisdom, like I said, but not stay in the worry.
Cool. So Yuri, what is stacking? When you
Tell them why you're laughing.
Yeah, and well, I'm laughing because so in terms of the book, you talked about stacking, and then your personal testimony here, you talked about this where something would happen and you fly off the hook, right? And I think all of us have had that moment. Like even for me, when you talked about stacking, I was like, oh, Linal, where have you stacked? Because there's a pressure point, right? And we say things like pressure points or don't mess with that person on this.
Right.
What we don't realize is the reason you can't mess with that person on this is because their whole life they've been stacking those incidents, right? And so everybody knows that if you do that, it's going to send them off.
That's right.
Because they haven't properly forgiven. So tell us a little bit more about.
So I joke around because I love, hanging out with my girlfriend, both married and single, but we might joke around and say, for some of my single girlfriends, we'd be like, she dates the same man every time. His name is just different, right? And she might be leaving relationships for the same reason, but just not seeing it, right?
Right.
So we're a culmination of our experiences, right? And we should be able to draw from the wisdom, but we also hold on to the hurt that comes from those things.
It's true.
And unless you can compartmentalize your emotions, you can't help but continue to bring something on top of something that seems familiar, right? You recognize it, you see it. It's a familiar. I call it a familiar spirit.
Right.
You know that thing. And until you address it, it could work against you if you're not realizing, because the triggers will still happen.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how you manage them.
Tell them how stacking manifests.
You could start in one thing in an argument with someone, for anyone who's ever had an argument with anyone. Let's just use a spouse for an example.
Yes.
You'll start on one thing, and you look up, and now you're talking about 4 different things that have come up in the conversation, and your husband might be looking at you and be like, but I thought we were talking about this one thing.
Right, yeah.
Where'd all this other stuff come from? And it's because you haven't forgiven the first thing, so the other things that are adding on to it that are similar or familiar, you now feel even more justified to stand your ground. And you have stacked those things, and now you're hardened, and it's very difficult to just get through those layers.
And that's a scary word you said, harden, especially in a relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we get hard.
Yeah.
We put that, it ain't the armor of God. It's
a whole different type of armor.
And it's inevitable. It's inevitable in a relationship as you spend time with someone that they're going to offend, they're going to disappoint.
Yeah.
They're going to, over time, and if you're not letting those things go, it will inevitably erode your relationship and maybe even to the point where it can't be repaired.
Yeah.
That's why people look up. years down the road and wonder why I don't even like you anymore.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a lyric by Common in one of his songs, I think with Erykah Badu, where he says, I want to be the one that loves you the deepest and hurts you the most. Right? Because if I can hurt you the most, that means that you're vulnerable to me. This is truly intimate.
Right.
And so I repeated the lyric to my wife when we were engaged, and she was like, "What? Why would you want to do that?" And I was like, so I played the song for her, and I told her, I was like, because that means that we're open to one another, right? But I think we also have to remember that if I'm hurt by my wife, that is not an opportunity for me to close myself, but an opportunity for me to address the hurt, forgive, and remain open.
Right.
And
for them, hopefully, to learn and not repeat.
Right. That hurt. I don't want to do that.
There'll be others, but not that one.
But not that one. Exactly.
Well, and I know there might be people listening saying, but what if the same person keeps on hurting me over and over again?
Well, I mean, in a marriage,
yeah,
the same person is going to keep hurting you over and over again.
Absolutely.
And in different ways. Yeah. Whether it's, you didn't think about me and you poured yourself coffee and you didn't pour me none, or something much deeper and bigger than that. I mean, it's good, but they'll keep hurting you.
They will. And so, you could either have death by mosquitoes, right, where it's just these snacks, gnatting at you all the time, or it could be some real major thing that happens, that causes a separation in your relationships. And it's just, this idea of perfection versus progression, right?
Right.
I know I'm getting better when I can get back to peace faster. Okay? So, because some people want to know, well, how do I know I've forgiven?
And it's back to that practice piece.
That's right.
Practice.
Yeah, when I can get back to peace faster, when I can go around that whole circle of the just breathe practice, sometimes I can now start and begin in the spirit, and I can get to temper responses immediately. I can get better at certain things. But in other areas, I got to resist making it bigger. I got to evaluate my emotions. I got to get myself to stabilize, and then maybe I can say something.
Wait. That's the breathe act,
Yeah.
Right. Why don't you share that with real quick?
Breathe.
So remember, just breathe is part of the yoga practice. And what you just went through is the BREATHE acronym. I know that because I listened to the book, right? Which I'm encouraging you all to do, to go to learningforgiveness.com and listen to the book. But again,
B
is begin in the spirit. That's kind of where you stop. You realize you've been hurt, and you need to take a moment. Whether it's a 10-second moment or an hour moment, however long your circumstances or whatever allows you to. And you come armed with 2 to 3 what we call go-to scriptures. Things or affirmations are good too, that allow you to recite to yourself.
To get your mind right.
I'm bigger than this.
Yeah.
I can overcome this as an affirmation. Or if it's scripture, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. Whatever works for you. And then you employ the STOP acronym.
Right, which is, surrender the circumstances, tell God what's happening, offer a sacrifice of praise, and then prepare yourself because another hit is going to come.
Got it. Prepare yourself.
Yeah.
And tell me more about prepare yourself, because the other ones I think are straightforward, but how does one prepare themselves?
So we kind of say it jokingly, but you have to be in a continual posture of forgiveness. I mean, the word tells you. Jesus wasn't trying to make a math equation when he says forgive 70 times 7. That wasn't the point. The point is that offenses happen all the time.
So you have to be constantly prepared to actually say, okay, I forgive you.
Yeah, or just to be in the posture of forgiveness. Think about people who cut you off on the road while you're driving.
Yeah.
We have some expletives.
I gotta forgive them?
Yes. the expletives have already come out, and you put that out in the universe.
You know what? Bring that back. But here's the funny thing. I think often we can forgive the things that sometimes the things that we do trigger us the most. Yeah. But for me, typically, I'm like, I'd have made that move, bro, that nice move, on the expressway. But what I'm hearing you say is we have to constantly be looking for these opportunities to forgive and stay open and stay free.
It's like fitness. It's like everything. If you don't go to the gym, you're not going to get healthier.
That's right.
That's right.
Stay prepared.
If you don't prepare your food before you leave, you're more likely to drive through the drive-thru and grab something that you shouldn't eat.
That's right.
I'm telling you.
And that's why it was critical for me, because I had blood clots for a while. And 2 of them nearly killed me. And the doctor was clear that if I was not in a good physical health, I had been working out, I had been exercising, the blood clots, they don't know where they came from or why. But if I had not been healthy,
they would have taken you out.
Yes.
Wow.
I was in a posture of good health. So that when something happened to me, I could heal quickly.
There you go. And which is why so talking about emotional healing, that's also the reason to be prepared.
You got to be prepared. So then we have resist making it bigger, evaluate your emotions.
That's the R and breathe. Okay.
Resist making it bigger, because each one of those, you break those down.
Right. So resist making it bigger.
Resist making it bigger.
We're good at that.
That's where the stacking comes in.
That's where the stacking comes in. That's the stacking tool. The stacking tool.
Yeah.
Resist making it bigger.
Okay.
Resist making it bigger, and then evaluate emotions.
Okay.
Agree to stabilize. That's when you kind of realize that you can control your emotions, and you're not going to let them get out of control so that you don't operate in extremes and do something crazy.
So when I'm listening to this too, the just breathe practice, evaluating this requires us to slow down.
Yes.
It requires us to get present to ourselves. And so there's no projecting taking place. Like, I'm going inward and I'm evaluating how I feel. But then, what's the next one?
Agree to stabilize.
I'm actually saying, I'm going to stabilize. I'm going to.
Right. I'm not going to let these circumstances sway me any longer.
I'm not going to make it bigger. I'm just going to allow it.
Right. And I can't allow these justified emotions that I'm having to cause me to overreact. You want to stay in control as much as that's possible. There's a time to defend yourself if you're in danger. But if there's no physical danger, you've got to get a handle on your emotions. And everybody has the ability to do that. But like anything else, it takes practice.
Right. Got it.
I mean, you think about it. When you're in an argument, how often are you actually... You want to win.
Yeah.
You're already formulating your response.
Yeah.
You're not actually even listening.
Most of the time, you're not.
Yeah.
I know we men, like, if my wife begins to escalate, I'm like, I don't know what happens to me cognitively, but it just doesn't. It's like something clicks off. It's like...
Right, and because I'm a soldier, conflict is what I do. I can go here with you.
So you step into
it. Now I can be positioned for something that I'm very comfortable with, that I've done a million times, and that's engage hostily with you.
Which with a relationship that you care about, it's not a good thing. Yeah.
I don't provoke it, or I try not to. I hope I don't. But when I'm in it, when I'm in it, I'm not uncomfortable. Right. When I'm in a hostile environment, I'm not uncomfortable because I'm familiar here.
Got it. I'm going to have you guys back, partly because, one, you're married. One of the things I want to do next year is bring on some married couples to have some real talk. I believe we'll get some real talk out of you guys. Yeah. So, all right, so the rest of the acronym.
Oh, temper your responses.
Temper your response, okay.
So, because sometimes you may not need to say anything.
Or do anything.
Or do anything. Sometimes, but just temper the response.
Got it.
Expect healing. And then enter his peace.
Enter his peace. Beautiful. Well, everyone, John and Yuri Cruzat. Let me see now. Look at the board. The board is full. Y'all can't call me at the end. Y'all can't call at the end. Yeah, you gotta call at the beginning. Like, man,
just getting up.
Yeah. So, I don't think we're gonna be able to get to those phone calls. So, Frank, Mama D, Art, Karen, I apologize. As a matter of fact, Patrick, if you could take down their questions, then maybe, these are questions.
We'd be happy to answer.
Yeah. In your Forgiveness Friday letter?
Yeah, you can go right to our website, learningforgiveness.com, or you can go to our Facebook page, Learning Forgiveness, which would be great. Post questions there. We can respond to you very quickly. Even in Instagram, Learning Forgiveness, you can post questions there. Hit us on the DM. We can get back to you.
There you go. So a number of different ways, and is it all Learning Forgiveness?
Learning Forgiveness, and also Just Breathe Wellness. Yeah, either one.
Just Breathe Wellness.
Yeah, Breathe Wellness. Yeah.
All right. Thank you all so much for being with us this morning, sharing your gift of forgiveness, your expertise.
Thank you.
It's so needed. And what I believe is a phenomenal way for us to enter into the new year. I know I got something from it, and I believe that most of you all have. I've been watching the stream here on Facebook, and I mean, quite a few quite a few thoughts and responses, and so this has been phenomenal.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh no, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. And I didn't even get to all my questions, so no question. You know, I'm not surprised that we didn't get to all the callers because I had other questions, but I think we got to the major ones. Here's one quick one, and I'm gonna do a quick commercial, and then we're gonna come back to it and end the show this way. So I'll give you a chance to think about it.
Okay. Sure.
How does forgiveness enable the ability for one to walk in their purpose?
Awesome question. Awesome question.
All right, so I'm gonna let you think on that. We're gonna end the show with that, but before we end, it's the end of the year, and you guys know I've been giving away gifts and specials all weekend over email, and I wanted to offer the listening audience. I mean, you all have stuck with me all year, and as you all know, I am an ambassador for you accomplishing your goals. And so many of you have become Slayer Goals members. For those of you who have not, if you use the discount code WVON Goals, that's all together, all caps, you can have a free trial, not free, but $1 for $1. You can try the Slayer Goals membership for 30 days, right? So if you don't like it, risk-free, you can just turn around, cancel it, and you won't owe us anything but the $1 to try it. And by doing so, you have an opportunity to check out the Slayer Goals course, learn the science of goal setting, and join us on our calls. I said calls in January. Slayer Goals members who are listening will be having bonus calls because it's the first month of the year, and I want to make sure you guys are set and ready to accomplish your goals. So that's the first offer that I'm making you as we end this year. The second one is the Murder Mediocrity Summit is coming, March 23rd, 2019. I'm excited about it. It's at UIC this year, right here in Chicago. And we have early bird discounts. So last week I gave the tickets away very, very cheap. They're not that cheap. But they're not as expensive as they will be. This is regularly a $97 ticket for regular admission, right? The VIP is double that. And for anyone who wants to take advantage of the early bird discount using the discount code New Year, then you will get the tickets for $30. So again, still fairly reasonable. It's the 30th. You notice the theme. It's the 30th, so I'm doing my best to make sure that those of you who, maybe your finances aren't necessarily right, but you want to be inspired, you want to get the type of information you need to take your life to the next level, you can be present. Okay, so the Murder Mediocrity Summit for $30 if you use the New Year discount code to purchase your tickets. Looks like that brings us to the end. So real quick, John or Yuri, like 20 seconds, what's the answer to, how does forgiveness help one walk in their purpose?
I think that forgiveness is the core of your purpose, in the sense that anything that blocks you from being able to walk fully on what God has placed in your heart to do, anything that blocks you will stop you from being fully walking into your greatness. So don't let unforgiveness be that thing. That's something you can actually control. You don't need it from anybody else. You can decide and choose your will, mind, and emotions. You can choose to release the hurt from the past and walk fully into your purpose.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Yuri and John Cruzat, founders of Learning Forgiveness. My name is Linal Harris, right here on WVON 1690 AM. You've been listening to Inspirational Perspective. Next up, Ernesto Borges of the Borges Report. Have a phenomenal day, everyone. Be blessed.
Trump on reaching a budget deal that would end a partial government shutdown. Yesterday, the president said he is in the White House.